The palace of Queen Sereth stood like a mountain of shining crystal in the heart of Velara, capital of the alien empire. Its towers touched the skies, glittering with light from 1,000 stars. To her people, it was a symbol of strength and pride. To her enemies, it was a fortress none dared to strike, or so she had believed. That night, the sky burned red. Alarms howled through the palace walls. The ground shook as enemy warships fired from orbit. Distant explosions rolled like thunder, and the once proud city filled with screams. Columns of smoke rose in the distance. Velara, jewel of the empire, was under attack. Inside the throne hall, Queen Sereth sat stiff and unmoving, her sharp crown gleaming above her pale features. Her golden robe of office trailed down the steps of the throne, untouched by dust or ash. Her guards, tall armored warriors bred for loyalty, stood at her sides, gripping their weapons. The queen's voice was calm, but her eyes betrayed unease. "Report," she demanded. A trembling officer knelt. "My queen, the enemy has broken through the outer shields. Their troops land in the city even now. We cannot hold for long." The queen's jaw tightened. She had ruled for years without fear, but tonight her empire's heart was bleeding. "Then summon the generals," she ordered. "We will meet them in battle." The officer hesitated, then whispered, "The generals, they have already fled the capital." Silence spread across the hall. The words hung like a blade. The queen rose slowly from her throne, her robes whispering across the floor. Her guards shifted nervously, their eyes avoiding hers. "Fled?" Her voice shook with fury. "My own generals abandoned me?" Before she could speak further, the walls shuddered violently. A blast tore through one of the great doors, shattering stone and crystal alike. Dust filled the air. Screams echoed as servants ran. Through the smoke came the distant roar of enemy soldiers closing in. The queen turned to her guards, her last line of defense. "Stand firm," she commanded. "For your queen, for the empire." But fear had already poisoned their hearts. One guard, then another, lowered their weapon. Another stumbled back. The sound of gunfire grew louder and panic spread like wildfire. Within moments, the queen's proud elite, those who had sworn to defend her to the death, turned and fled. Their boots clattered against the marble as they abandoned her throne room. The queen stood alone. Her chest rose and fell in disbelief. She had never felt fear so sharp, nor betrayal so deep. All her life she had been obeyed without question. But now, when her life was in danger, even her loyal warriors had chosen their own survival over her. Only one figure did not run. At the far side of the hall, near a line of carved pillars, a lone soldier remained. Not one of her kind, not one of her warriors, but a human. He wore no ornate armor, only a plain combat suit patched from too many battles. His helmet hung at his side, revealing a scarred face and sharp eyes that carried the weight of war. His name was Marcus Hale, a sergeant assigned to the palace as a mere honor guard. He had been posted here because humans, though tolerated within the empire, were seen as useful only for low duties, too reckless, too wild, too unpredictable to serve in higher ranks. In truth, many aliens saw humans as little more than blunt tools. But now, when all others had run, Marcus stepped forward. The queen's voice trembled with rage. Why do you not flee with the others? You owe me no loyalty." Marcus checked the magazine of his rifle with calm precision. His tone was steady, almost cold. "Because, your majesty, my duty doesn't run." The queen blinked. She did not understand. His words were simple, yet carried a weight she could not ignore. The walls shook again as enemy soldiers began to break through. The sound of metal boots echoed closer. The queen felt her heart race for the first time in her reign. Marcus moved quickly. He grabbed a fallen guard's energy blade and strapped it across his back. Then he turned to her with firm eyes. "We need to move now." The queen lifted her chin. Even in fear, her pride burned. "I am the queen. This is my throne. I will not run like a coward." Marcus stepped closer, his voice cutting like steel. "Your throne won't matter if you're dead. Survival first. Rebuilding comes after." She had never been spoken to in such a way. A human daring to command her. For a moment she wanted to strike him down for his insolence. But the thunder of approaching soldiers reminded her of reality, and deep within a spark of something strange stirred. Was it trust? Before she could answer, the throne hall doors burst open. Enemy troops stormed inside, weapons raised, their armor marked with the crimson sigil of a rival empire. Marcus reacted instantly. He shoved the queen behind one of the marble pillars. Shots rang out, energy bolts sparking against the walls. He returned fire with brutal precision, every bullet landing true. 2 enemies fell. A third tried to flank, but Marcus pulled a smoke grenade from his belt, flooding the hall with choking fog. The queen coughed, struggling to see. "What is this madness?" she hissed. Marcus grabbed her wrist and pulled her along. "Cover, move!" She stumbled after him, her golden robe catching on broken stone. Behind them, enemy voices shouted through the smoke, searching blindly. Marcus led her through a side passage, his steps sure and quick despite the chaos. They emerged into a long corridor lined with shattered windows. Outside, the city burned. Fires spread across the skyline, ships screamed through the air, and the cries of civilians echoed in the night. The empire she had built was falling apart before her eyes. The queen staggered, clutching the wall for balance. This cannot be. My people were strong. My armies were unmatched. How can this be happening? Marcus scanned the path ahead, rifle ready. His voice was blunt. Armies don't matter if their leaders run. And your people followed their example. Her eyes widened, stung by the truth of his words. For the first time, Queen Serath felt powerless. She had ruled with absolute command, but now, with her guards gone and her throne abandoned, only one being stood beside her, a human. The queen studied him as they ran. His calm focus, the way he shielded her from danger, the way he fought without hesitation. There was no fear in his eyes, only determination. Why? She wondered. Why does this human risk his life for me, when even my own kind would not? Her question remained unspoken as Marcus led her deeper into the collapsing palace. Behind them, the throne hall fell silent under enemy control. The queen's empire had begun to fall. But in that moment, her survival rested in the hands of the one she least expected. Sergeant Marcus Hale, the human soldier who refused to flee. The palace burned. Smoke poured through shattered ceilings, filling the air with choking dust. Every corridor trembled with the weight of falling stone. Every shadow carried the echo of marching boots. The once great heart of the empire was now a ruin of fire and screams. Marcus Hale moved quickly through the halls, his rifle raised, eyes sharp. Beside him, Queen Serath struggled to keep pace. Her golden robe, once a symbol of power, dragged heavy and torn behind her. She pressed a hand to her chest, her breath coming short. She was not built for running through rubble. "Keep moving," Marcus ordered, his voice steady but firm. The queen's pride bristled. She was not used to being commanded. Her life had been filled with others bowing, obeying, and waiting for her words. Now this lone human spoke to her as though she were another soldier in his unit. Yet when she looked into his eyes, she saw no mockery, only determination. Still her voice sharpened. "My guards abandoned me. My generals fled. And you, a human of all beings, you choose to stay. Why?" Marcus glanced at her briefly, then turned his attention back to the corridor ahead. "Because duty doesn't run." The same words as before, simple, unshaken. She felt their weight more now as fire cracked overhead. Suddenly, a squad of enemy soldiers appeared at the far end of the hall. Their weapons glowed with deadly light. "Down," Marcus barked. He shoved the queen behind a pillar and dropped to one knee, returning fire. His shots were precise, each burst cutting through armor. 2 enemies fell before they realized what hit them. The others fired wildly, energy bolts smashing into the walls. The marble cracked, showering sparks. Serath pressed herself against the cold stone, heart pounding. Never before had she been so close to death. Never before had she seen war with her own eyes. Her guards had always shielded her from such ugliness. But now she saw the battlefield through the eyes of a human soldier. Marcus rolled out from cover, firing again. One more enemy collapsed. Another tried to flank them, but Marcus hurled a knife, catching the soldier at the throat. The last one turned to flee, shouting for reinforcements. "Move." Marcus grabbed Serath's arm and pulled her down another hallway. The queen stumbled, her pride fading under the weight of survival. She was no longer a ruler in control. She was prey being hunted. They pushed through a broken archway and entered a vast chamber, the royal library. Once filled with glowing scrolls and crystal shelves, it was now ablaze. Flames licked across ancient walls, devouring centuries of knowledge. The queen gasped, horror twisting her face. "My people's history. It is burning." She cried. Marcus pulled her forward. "History can be written again. You can't if you're dead." His words struck her again, cold and direct. She hated the truth in them. As they ran through the chamber, part of the ceiling collapsed. Fire rained down, blocking their path. Marcus shielded the queen with his body, pushing her clear just in time. His sleeve caught flame, but he tore it off without slowing. His face remained calm, his movements practiced. Sarath stared at him in disbelief. He fought not with fear, but with an unshakable will. They reached the far side of the library, bursting into a narrow servant passage. The walls here were plain, the floors cracked. It was a path beneath notice, one the invaders might overlook. For a brief moment, silence returned. The queen leaned against the wall, trying to catch her breath. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, her regal calm shattered. She turned her gaze to Marcus. You risk yourself for me, yet you are human. You gain nothing from my survival. Why do you fight so fiercely? Marcus reloaded his rifle, his hands steady. Because I was given a post. I was told to protect you. That's enough, she tilted her head. Enough? Most soldiers fight for reward, for glory, for their people. You fight for an order? He looked at her then, his eyes hard. Where I come from, orders matter. Duty matters. If I run, I lose myself. I'd rather die standing than live running. The queen fell silent. His words carried a strength she could not ignore. In her world of politics, betrayal, and shifting loyalties, she had never known such simplicity. She envied it even as she resisted it. Their pause ended as the sound of boots echoed nearby. Enemy patrols had found the servant passage. Marcus cursed under his breath. They're closing in. We need another way. He scanned the passage, his soldier's eyes sharp. Then he saw it. A narrow opening in the floor where rubble had broken through. It led downward into the palace's lower tunnels. Old routes used by servants and workers long forgotten. He pointed. There, the queen's nose wrinkled. A queen does not crawl in the dirt. Marcus gave her a sharp look. A dead queen rules nothing. Her pride wavered. With a deep breath, she nodded. Together they slipped into the hole, climbing down into darkness. The tunnel smelled of dust and decay. Their walls were rough stone, their ceilings low. Strange insects skittered in the shadows. The queen wrinkled her nose, unused to such filth. But Marcus moved with ease, his boots silent, his rifle ready. As they pressed forward, distant shouts echoed above. The enemy was searching the palace, tearing it apart stone by stone. The queen whispered, They want me alive. Marcus nodded. You're a prize, a symbol. If they capture you, your people lose all hope. Her voice lowered. Perhaps they already have. My guards ran. My generals fled. My empire is in flames. Marcus stopped and turned to face her. His words were quiet but fierce. An empire isn't dead until its people stop fighting. You're still here. That means hope's still alive. The queen stared at him, her throat tight. No alien had ever spoken to her like this. Not with fear, not with respect, but with raw truth. Before she could respond, the tunnel quaked. A blast tore through part of the wall ahead, and enemy soldiers poured in, their weapons raised. Marcus shoved the queen back and opened fire. The tunnel lit with flashes of energy, the air filled with the crack of his rifle and the screams of dying enemies. He fought with savage precision, using every shadow, every corner to his advantage, but more came. Dozens of boots thundered toward them. Marcus tossed a grenade down the tunnel, the blast shaking the walls. Go, he shouted. He pulled the queen through a side passage, their footsteps echoing as they fled deeper. The enemy shouted behind them, but Marcus's traps slowed their pursuit, mines placed in seconds, wires strung across paths, grenades left as deadly gifts. Each explosion shook the tunnels, and the queen realized the truth. This human was not only brave, he was clever. He fought not with numbers, but with cunning. He turned weakness into strength, retreat into ambush. They finally reached a hidden exit, a narrow grate opening into the night. Marcus pried it open with a grunt and helped the queen crawl through. They emerged into the open city. The sight stole the queen's breath. Her capital was a sea of fire. Towers collapsed, ships screamed overhead, and her people fled through the streets in terror. The empire's heart lay broken before her. Her knees weakened. All is lost, she whispered. Marcus looked over the burning city, his jaw tight. Not yet. As long as you breathe, they haven't won. We'll get you out. We'll make them pay later. The queen stared at him. She saw no fear, no despair. Only resolve. And for the first time she felt a spark of hope. The invaders might have crushed her armies. They might have shattered her palace. But as long as this one human soldier stood by her side, perhaps all was not lost. The city of Velara, once a shining jewel of the Empire, had turned into a nightmare. Smoke covered the skies, fire spread through the streets, and the cries of civilians echoed in every corner. Enemy ships floated above, dropping soldiers into the heart of the capital. What was once proud and untouchable now looked broken and bleeding. Marcus Hale guided Queen Sarah through the chaos. His movements were sharp and practiced, his eyes always scanning for danger. The queen followed, her golden robes torn, her face pale. Every step she took, she felt the weight of her fallen empire pressing down on her. The streets were full of fear. Her people, once so proud, now hid in ruined homes or ran through alleys carrying children, dragging the wounded. None looked at her with recognition. She was their queen, but without her throne, without her guards, she was just another fugitive. Marcus noticed her slowing down. He stopped, turned to her, and spoke firmly. "Keep moving. They're hunting you." Her pride pushed her to speak sharply. "They hunt me because I am queen, but what am I now? My guards fled, my generals abandoned me. My empire falls while I crawl like prey through my own streets." Marcus adjusted his grip on his rifle. His face was steady, his voice calm but iron. "You're alive. That's what matters. If you live, your people still have hope. Dead, you're just another story for the enemy to tell." The words stung her, but deep inside she knew he was right. Suddenly, the sharp whine of enemy engines cut through the air. A patrol ship swept over the street, its searchlights scanning the ground. Marcus shoved the queen into the shadow of a broken wall just as the light passed by. They crouched close together, listening to the hum of engines overhead. The queen's heart raced. She had never been this close to capture. Her entire life had been spent above danger, watching from safety while others fought for her. Now her survival depended on a single human soldier. When the patrol moved on, Marcus whispered, "We can't stay in the open. We need cover." He guided her into the ruins of a collapsed marketplace. Stalls lay broken, goods scattered and burning. The smell of smoke and spice filled the air. The queen looked around, her eyes watering. This had once been a place of life, laughter, and trade. Now it was silent except for the crackle of fire. As they moved through the wreckage, footsteps echoed behind them. Enemy voices shouted in their harsh language. "They've found us," Marcus muttered. The queen's chest tightened. "We cannot outrun an army." Marcus smirked faintly. "We don't outrun them. We outthink them." He pushed her behind the remains of a stall and quickly scanned the area. He pulled a few grenades from his belt and set them near broken beams. Then he waved for her to follow him deeper into the ruins. Moments later, the enemy patrol entered. They marched with heavy boots, scanning the shadows. The queen held her breath as they drew closer. Then, boom! The grenades exploded, collapsing the beams. Fire and rubble swallowed the patrol. Screams filled the air. Marcus didn't look back. He grabbed the queen's arm and pulled her through a side alley. Her voice shook. You knew the market so well. You planned this?" Marcus shook his head. "I don't know your city. I just know war. You use what's around you." The queen stared at him. In that moment, she realized humans fought differently. Where her soldiers relied on technology, training, and numbers, this human relied on wit, grit, and endless resolve. But the enemy wasn't finished. More patrols closed in, drawn by the explosion. The queen and Marcus raced through alleys, their footsteps echoing. Civilians peeked from hiding places, eyes wide with fear as they passed. A child reached out, whispering, "Help us." The queen slowed, her heart aching. But Marcus pulled her onward. "If they take you, everyone dies. Survive now, help later." His words cut deep. She wanted to stop, to command, to protect her people, but she could do nothing. Not yet. They ran until they reached the edge of the industrial district. Towers of metal rose above them, factories now dark and broken. Smoke poured from shattered pipes. Marcus led her inside one of the factories, hiding among the machinery. They crouched in the shadows, listening as enemy patrols marched past outside. The queen trembled not from cold but from something she had never felt before. Helplessness. She whispered, "Why? Why do you risk your life for me? You are not my guard, not my subject. You are human." Marcus checked his weapon, his face calm. "I was given a duty. To protect you. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter if you're alien. Orders are orders. And I don't abandon them." She tilted her head, studying him. "And if you die for me? What then?" He met her gaze. "Then I did my job." His words were sharp, but they carried something deeper. Something she could not understand. Before she could reply, the sound of engines roared above. Dropships landed near the factory. Soldiers poured out, searching. Marcus cursed under his breath. "They know you're here." He looked around quickly, his soldier's mind working fast. He pointed to a maintenance tunnel near the back of the factory. "That way, go," the Queen frowned. "And you?" "I'll slow them down." Her heart jumped. "You would fight alone? Against them all?" He gave a small grin. "I've done worse." For the first time, the Queen felt fear not for herself but for him. "No," she whispered. "You cannot fight them alone. If you fall, She stopped, unsure of her words. Marcus didn't wait. He pulled her into the tunnel and sealed the entrance behind them. They crawled through the narrow passage, the sound of enemy soldiers echoing behind. The tunnel opened into another part of the city, a broken transport station. Once filled with people boarding sleek shuttles, it was now a ruin of fire and metal. The Queen stepped out, her eyes scanning the destruction. "This was the heart of travel for my people. Now it is ashes." Marcus looked around, his rifle ready. "Ashes can be rebuilt, but only if you're alive to lead them." The Queen fell silent. His words struck her again, simple, harsh, true. Suddenly, enemy soldiers spotted them. Shouts rang out. Weapons fired. Bolts of energy tore through the station. Marcus pushed the Queen behind cover and returned fire. He moved with deadly precision, each shot dropping an enemy, but more kept coming, pouring in from every side. The Queen's heart pounded as she watched him fight. She had seen battles from afar, through reports and maps. But here she saw the reality, a single human holding back an army with nothing but will. Still, numbers pressed in. Marcus knew they couldn't hold. He pulled the Queen toward the broken tracks. "We jump." Her eyes widened. "That fall will kill us." "Better than capture," he shouted. Together they leapt down into the dark tunnels below. They hit the ground hard, rolling across the dirt. The Queen groaned in pain, but Marcus pulled her up. Enemy voices shouted above, but none dared follow into the darkness yet. The Queen caught her breath, her chest heaving. She looked at Marcus, this scarred human who refused to leave her. "You are mad," she whispered, "mad, but fearless." Marcus gave a small shrug. "Fear's there. I just don't let it win." For the first time in her life, the Queen felt something strange. Trust. As they moved deeper into the dark tunnels, hunted from above, she realized that her empire might have crumbled. But as long as this one human stood by her side, perhaps her crown was not yet lost. The tunnels ended abruptly at the edge of the old city walls. Above, the enemy fleet continued to dominate the skies. Fires from the burning capital lit the night, casting long shadows over broken towers and collapsed bridges. Marcus Hale crouched behind a pile of rubble, scanning the area. Queen Sarath followed, her hands trembling, her golden robes torn and soiled. They had run through half the city, evading patrols, but Marcus knew the enemy would not give up. They were cornered. The Queen's chest heaved. "This is the end, isn't it? There is nowhere left to run." Marcus didn't answer immediately. Instead, he studied the terrain. A ruined square surrounded by broken walls with narrow alleys perfect for ambush. Even here, against overwhelming numbers, a smart fighter could make a stand. He finally spoke, calm and firm. "It's not over until we say it's over. We make them pay for every step they've taken." "We fight." The Queen's eyes widened. "Fight against hundreds?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "Hundreds? Maybe, but they don't know how humans fight." He began setting traps. Old machinery rigged to topple, broken barrels filled with explosives, wires stretched across alleys to trip the enemy. His movements were precise, practiced. Every step, every calculation was meant to even the odds. The Queen watched in disbelief. "You, one human, plan to stop them all?" Marcus shrugged lightly. "I don't plan to stop them all. Just enough to survive until help comes." The Queen felt a strange mix of fear and admiration. For the first time, she realized that humans fought differently, not relying on numbers, not relying on superior technology, but on cunning, speed, and sheer willpower. Hours passed as Marcus continued to fortify their position. The Queen followed his instructions reluctantly, helping where she could, but mostly observing. Her own soldiers would have fled long ago, but this human refused to leave, refused to surrender. Finally, the enemy appeared. A squad of armored soldiers moved cautiously through the ruins. searching for the queen. Marcus signaled her to stay low. The first enemy stepped into a trap. A hanging barrel toppled, crushing him instantly. Energy guns fired blindly into the smoke, but Marcus had anticipated their paths. He fired from hidden cover, picking off soldiers with deadly accuracy. The queen's eyes widened. She had never seen such precision, such fearlessness. She had led armies, commanded fleets, but she had never felt the raw impact of a single soldier shaping the battlefield. The enemy regrouped, more pouring into the square. They shouted, signaling reinforcements from above. The queen's heart raced. She had always ruled from safety, but now she was seeing her empire's collapse firsthand. Marcus turned to her. "Stay behind me. Keep low." They moved together, ducking behind ruined walls and barricades. Marcus fired, dodged, and moved again, a whirlwind of action and strategy. The enemy pressed, but he funneled them into traps, turning the square into a deadly maze. Hours seemed to pass like minutes. The queen, crouched behind a shattered wall, whispered, How do you do this? One human. Against an army?" Marcus paused, wiping sweat and blood from his brow. "We survive. We fight smart. We don't give up. And we don't run." She stared at him, a strange feeling growing in her chest, fear mixed with awe, admiration mixed with humility. This human, so unlike any soldier she had known, carried something no alien army could teach: relentless courage. The enemy commander, seeing his forces decimated, moved in personally. He was large, heavily armored, and confident. He shouted orders in his harsh tongue, commanding his soldiers to attack with precision. Marcus glanced at the queen. "This is it. Stay close." The fight escalated. Energy bolts flew through the air, stones shattered, fires burned. Marcus moved like a shadow, his rifle steady, grenades precise. The enemy commander advanced, but Marcus had already laid a trap. A thin wire hidden in the rubble triggered explosives beneath the commander's feet. The ground shook and the commander fell, stunned but alive. The queen could barely breathe, her eyes wide. You planned this?" Marcus gave a small nod. Every step. The remaining enemy soldiers hesitated, giving Marcus the moment he needed. He fired 1, 2, 3 precise shots and the squad fell. The night was silent again, except for distant explosions and the crackling of fire. The queen, shaking, stepped forward. You held them off. One human. Marcus gave a tired smile. One human with a job. That's all. Above them, a signal lit the sky. Loyalist forces, rallied by word of Marcus's courage, returned to the city. Ships descended, soldiers moved in, and the enemy, seeing the reinforced forces, began to retreat. The queen watched in disbelief. Her city, her empire, was saved, not by her generals, not by her guards, but by a human soldier who refused to abandon duty. She approached Marcus, kneeling slightly before him, though he didn't acknowledge it. I have underestimated humans," she whispered. He shook his head. "You didn't underestimate me. You just didn't know us yet." The queen's pride mixed with humility. Her empire had taught her that loyalty was rare, courage even rarer. But this human had shown her both in full measure. They walked through the ruins of the square together. The queen's eyes scanned the devastation. Her palace, her markets, her streets, all scarred by war. But for the first time she felt a spark of hope. The loyalist forces were gathering survivors, tending the wounded, securing the area. The queen saw her people, once scattered and fearful, returning to her. They looked at Marcus with curiosity and suspicion. A human had held their queen when their own warriors had fled. She turned to Marcus, her voice firm. "Sergeant Marcus Hale, you have done what none of my guards could. You have saved me and my empire. I owe you more than words can say." Marcus shrugged, tired but unbowed. "I did my job. You did yours. Now let's make sure the rest survive." The queen smiled faintly, a mixture of relief and newfound respect. She had ruled for years without knowing the true meaning of courage. Now she understood. And she knew that her empire's future might depend not only on her leadership, but on the humans who fought beside her. Night turned to dawn as the loyalists secured the city. The fire still burned, smoke curling into the sky, but the enemy was gone. The queen stood atop the ruins of a collapsed tower, looking at her people. They were battered, frightened, but alive, and behind her the human soldier who had saved her stood quietly, watching, ready for whatever came next. The queen knew that the empire had been shaken to its core. But she also knew something else. As long as humans were willing to fight, willing to stand, willing to risk everything, perhaps her people and her empire had a chance. She stepped down from the tower, approaching Marcus. Tomorrow we rebuild together, and the universe will learn that the Queen of Velara does not fall so easily. And neither do humans. Marcus gave a small grin. Glad to help. But don't expect me to sit still while you rebuild. There's always another fight coming. For the first time, the Queen laughed, a sound of relief, respect, and awe. The human beside her had changed everything. Her empire might have been in ruins, but her trust in humans, and this one human, was stronger than any wall, any army, any palace. The city of Velara was quiet at last. Smoke still rose from smoldering buildings, and the streets were littered with rubble. But the enemy was gone. Loyalist forces had returned, tending to the wounded, and securing what remained of the capital. The Queen of Velara, Serath, stood among the ruins, her golden robes now singed and torn. She looked over the shattered city and felt the weight of survival pressing on her shoulders. For years she had ruled with power and pride. She had commanded fleets, armies, and nations, but nothing in her long reign had taught her what she had learned over the last 2 nights. Courage was not found in numbers. Loyalty was not found in titles, and hope could come from the most unexpected place. She turned to Marcus Hale, the human soldier who had stood by her side when all others had fled. He was weary, bloodied, and scarred, but he stood tall. His eyes scanned the ruins, always alert, always prepared. He was a soldier through and through, the kind of human that inspired both awe and fear. Serath took a deep breath. Her voice was quiet at first, but it grew stronger as she spoke. Marcus Hale, you have done what no alien soldier could. What no guard, what no general. You saved me when everyone else ran. Marcus shook his head. I did my job. You did yours. That's all there is to it. She studied him for a long moment, trying to understand the simplicity in his words. In the Empire, loyalty was often bought with gold or demanded with fear, but this human had risked his life for her. Not for glory, not for reward, only because it was the right thing to do. I do not understand your kind, she admitted softly. You are unlike anything I have ever known. Marcus gave a small shrug. We're not perfect, but we stand when others fall. The Queen's gaze swept across the city. Her guards had fled, her generals had abandoned her, but one human had made the difference. She could not ignore the truth. Humanity was different. Brave, cunning, relentless, willing to fight for duty and honor in a way that even her greatest warriors could not match. A commotion drew her attention. Citizens were emerging from hiding, slowly returning to the streets. Some cried in relief. Others hugged friends and family they had thought lost. Even amidst the destruction, life returned. The Queen's people had survived, thanks in large part to the human who refused to give up. Serath turned back to Marcus. You have my gratitude, and my respect, more than any soldier I have ever known. Marcus's face remained stoic. Respect is earned by action, not words. The Queen considered this carefully. He was right. Words meant nothing if actions did not back them up. And he had backed up every word with action, fighting, bleeding, and risking death for her and her empire. That evening, the Queen summoned her court. Nobles and generals gathered in the half-rebuilt palace, their faces pale and anxious. Whispers ran through the crowd as the Queen entered, her presence commanding attention even in her torn robes. All of you, she said, her voice firm, echoing through the hall. Know that our empire has survived this night only because of courage, loyalty, and action. And one among us has shown all three, when none others could. The noble's eyes turned to Marcus Hale, who stood quietly at the edge of the room. Murmurs filled the hall. A human, one of the species they had always considered minor, had saved the Queen and in doing so saved them all. The Queen raised her hand, silencing them. Sergeant Marcus Hale, step forward. Marcus stepped forward slowly, keeping his eyes calm. He had never sought recognition. He had fought because it was his duty, not for praise. I, Queen Serath of Velara, she continued, declare that from this day forward, humans shall be recognized not for their minor status or foreign origin, but for their courage, their loyalty, and their will. The story of tonight of this human soldier who stood when all others fled will be remembered across the Empire. She paused, letting her words sink in. Let this be a new chapter for Velara. Let every citizen know that bravery is not bound by species, that loyalty is not bought, that courage can come from anyone, even the most unexpected. Marcus bowed his head slightly, unused to ceremonies. The queen approached him and placed a hand lightly on his shoulder. It was a gesture of respect, of acknowledgement that transcended words. "You saved more than me," she said quietly. "You saved the Empire, and for that you have my oath. Humans will never again be dismissed or underestimated within my rule." The hall remained silent, the weight of her declaration filling every corner. For the first time, humans were not just tolerated, they were honored. Days passed and the city slowly began to rebuild. Fires were extinguished, rubble cleared, and survivors returned to their homes. Marcus worked alongside the queen, not as a servant or a guard, but as an advisor, a soldier whose insight and bravery had proven invaluable. The people looked to him with curiosity and newfound respect, realizing that humans were not merely foreign, they were exceptional. The queen, once prideful and distant, now understood the true meaning of leadership. It was not commanding armies from safety, but standing alongside those who fought for you, recognizing their value and honoring their courage. One evening, as the sun set over the ruins of Velara, casting long orange shadows across the city, the queen walked with Marcus along the partially rebuilt walls. "You have changed me," she said softly. "I will never see my empire or my people in the same way again." Marcus gave a faint smile. "I didn't do it for that, but it's good to know." The queen paused, looking out over the city she had saved and lost all at once. "You have taught me something humans have always known. That strength is not just in armies or technology, but in courage, in loyalty, in the will to stand when all others flee. I will remember this, always." Marcus nodded, his eyes scanning the horizon as though ready for the next fight. "And I'll be there when needed." The queen's smile returned, warmer now, touched with hope. "Then we have much to rebuild. The empire, the trust of my people, and perhaps a new understanding of humanity." For the first time in her reign, she felt a true sense of partnership, not just between ruler and soldier, but between species, between courage and duty, between the queen and the human who had saved her when the world fell apart. The city of Velara still bore scars from war, but within those scars lay a story of courage, a story of a human soldier who refused to run, and a queen who learned to see beyond pride and fear. And as the night settled over the capital, Marcus Hale stood beside Queen Sereth, silent but watchful, a living reminder of the strength of humans, the value of loyalty, and the courage that could defy even the darkest hour. The queen whispered to herself, not needing him to hear. "From this day forward, the universe will remember. Humans stand when others fall." And so, amidst the ruins, a new bond was forged, a bond between humans and aliens, between courage and survival, between a queen and the soldier who refused to leave her side. The empire had been saved, the city would rise again, and the legend of the human soldier who held the queen safe would echo through the stars for generations. Queen Sereth knew one thing for certain. In the future of Velara, humans would never again be underestimated.